Erin, since you are a new, not a newcomer, I'm going to start with you and give our folks some time just to get a sense as to the energy and how we flow. Can you help us, Erin, to understand what is happening right now with the overall approach to hair care in our community that motivated a need for this sort of survey and this type of research, which we're going to then turn to the doctors to help us explain in just a bit?
Well, I think it just boils down to, generational hair care, whether it's good or bad. And a lot of times, because we, haven't necessarily had the science backing to care for our hair, we've kind of just gone off the whim of what we feel from the ancestors and in our spirits, right? And from the over dilution of products, or the pollution of products, I should say. There's so many products on the market right now. The hair loss endemic. There's a lot of unlicensed braiders out there that are causing more harm than good, and it's not intentional, right? It's not like,
Mhm.
oh, they're like waking up in the morning, I'm going to braid your hair and I'm going to ruin it. No, it's just a learned practice, and sometimes we can learn things the wrong way,
Right.
which
I'm
will then
so
lead to harm.
I'm so glad you said that because sometimes we approach hair care the way we approach seasoning chicken or seasoning food. And it's like, well, when the ancestors tell me to stop, that's when I'm going to stop. Some of y'all stopped talking to your ancestors and your ancestors told you to stop putting that salt on your chicken 50, 11 years ago. That's why you got diabetes and high blood pressure right now. You claiming the ancestors, but you don't have no altar. You don't do no libations. Only time you claim the ancestors is for seasoning your food for too much soul food and it ain't good for your soul and then messing up people's hair. So I'm going to need us to have a different approach to how we are looking at hair care and have a bit more of an African-centered scientific approach as to a Pan-African-centered, we gonna ooga booga our way into a connection with the ancestors. Dr. Ehim Wenma, I hope I'm saying that correctly, point du jour, join us in this conversation. You are currently a third-year medical student at Meharry. Shout out to Meharry. Talk to us about how your personal experience within the Black hair care community led you to applying your medical practice and your medical studies to this area as well.
Yeah, so pretty much, I'm also co-leading the study with my classmate and good friend Adiola and Nimishan. And we
Mm,
were literally just talking on the phone one day, and I was like, girl, like, I'm losing my edges. I feel like a lot of Black women can relate to that, right? And I'm like,
yes.
it started when we were younger, blah, 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 whatever. Both being a Nigerian, I've been getting my hair box braids since 7, if even so old, to be honest. And I was like, that's when I first noticed it. And I was like, you think if our parents knew that doing our hair like this, we
Mhm.
would lose hair. Like, do you think they would have braided our hair like that? And I was like, yo, let's do a study on that. Let's investigate that because I never asked my parents, hey, did you know you're ruining my hair? It's just, much to Erin's point, we just kind of just did our hair. That's what we did.
Right.
That's how you look presentable. And that's kind of what lit the fire, so to speak.
And so I love this because this is one of the reasons why when people say representation matters, we got to ask why. And representation matters because you bring to you bring to areas of study these sorts of inquiries, which might not ever arise if we did not have people like you in those spaces. Dr. Dontal Johnson, I'd like to bring your voice into this conversation. You have been practicing medicine for quite some time now. You are a professor, as I mentioned, as associate professor at Meharry. Talk to us about how this issue, as a Black man who does not have a whole lot of hair on his head. I'm just describing this for the audience. What was your introduction to this topic, and what does your professional expertise tell you about some of the dangers we are experiencing as it pertains to those practices Erin referenced, which have a lot of cultural resonance, but not a whole lot of medical scientific grounding to support them?
Yes, I am a proud bald man, bald and beautiful Black man.
There it
But
is.
I am a father of 4 beautiful Black young ladies, and my wife is a beautiful Black woman, and she does all of their hair. So hair is a big thing in our household. In my home, we have hair days, we have hair weeks, where she does all of their hair. They're all natural. My wife started that natural journey some time ago, and all of our children, she does all of their hair. And so
Wow.
being an African American male and being a pediatrician at Meharry, our patients are predominantly look like us. And so one of the big things that I see sometimes are young ladies who are having, issues that we are doing our research on, are maybe having some other hair issues, and it's leading to depression, it's leading to low self-esteem. And it's one of those things where I was trained at an HBCU, and I practice HBCU like medicine, right? in my community, but it wasn't a lot of training, if really any, specifically targeted towards this huge thing that's a part of who we are, and a big part of our patients. And at the end of the day, it's one of those things where I'm so proud of Tammy and Aladola, who recognize that there's this gap in research. There's always this huge gap in African-American research, but there's this huger gap in research when it comes to targeting and hearing patients' actual voices, as well as like trying to figure out, what the problem is and where it starts at and what we can do about it. And I feel like our research is really helping that out. So shout out to Meharry for having students like Tammy here, as well as helping us to conduct this research.
And just to be clear, Meharry, as an HBCU medical school, even those of us who did not go to Meharry, we could donate to Meharry if we wanted to. So yeah, obviously the alumni are going to do that, but all of us who are listening right now could also donate, because that's how we sustain our institutions. Aaron, you mentioned this faux ancestral approach that we often take to hair knowledge. It's not just those of us who are doing our kids' hair in the kitchen, or in a case like mine, our entire household is getting their hair done in the kitchen. It's not just those of us who are doing it in our homes. It's also within the profession. And I saw recently over the weekend some videos of white cosmetologists who were doing locks. And there was some discussion in the commentary. Basically, folks were saying, how come I'm seeing all these white people now doing locks? And some of the white locticians responded, well, now we have cosmetology schools that require us to know how to do hair that in the African-American community. So we now have some of the skills. And that is, I know you have been advocating for us to have a greater sources of knowledge within the cosmetology space. I don't know if that was an intended consequence or an unintended consequence, but it made me think of you. And I'm wondering, when it comes to this sort of faux knowledge about how to do our hair in the household, are you also seeing remnants of that sort of education? I'm putting that in air quotes. That sort of education also infecting or sort of seeping its way into the cosmetology school spaces as well? Or is there a disconnect there between what you all are learning and what we're still practicing at home?
Man, that was a packed question.
You know how I do, girl.
So to just think about cosmetology, cosmetology is just recently introducing texture, right? It's been over 70 plus years in most states where texture has never even been involved in cosmetology. And so I wouldn't necessarily say it's coming from an ancestral space or a spiritual space in that realm. It's more so about the styling, the cosmetology, just kind of being introduced to various textures in regards to what we do. And with natural hair, it's really, we have the natural hair license, and that license is necessary because natural hair care is different and separate than cosmetology. So that is where that disconnect lies, right? Because our healing and our hair care is more of a ritual. It is more of a holistic approach. It's mind, body, spirit, as well as culture, but also science. And I always want to lead it back to science, because if we are not aware of skin conditions, if we are not aware of early hair loss, markers, we're leading our people down a terrible road. We have hair loss in children as young as 5. And that's why, when I saw Tammy, her research, I found them on LinkedIn. So this is, I'm so happy, because when I saw this research, I said, oh my goodness, this is exactly what we're talking about. And it's so important that we highlight these data facts, because they don't exist. So I wanted to bring this out to the public, to let the public know that we need data in our community, not just the data of retail sales, not just the data of how we have a billion-dollar industry, but the data of how this industry and the lack of education is impacting our community.
Wow. So Dr. Ehimwema, I want to bring you into this space now, because talk to us about what data you're seeking. And in this survey, and Dr. Day, I'm going to come back to you as well, but talk to us about what sort of data you're seeking and what the data will ultimately be used for. And for you all who are just joining us, you're listening to Lurie Daniel Favors on SiriusXM's Urban View. Jonah is tweeting out and putting out on Blue Sky, because we're about to stop using Twitter, y'all. So just get ready. But right now, I believe it's on Twitter and it's also on Blue Sky. This is a generational hair health research study that all of us can fill out and participate. Talk to us, Dr. Ehimwema, point du jour, as to what it is you're seeking to establish with the data that you're gathering with this survey.
Yeah, so first we want to assess how people are styling their children's hair, right? What is your motivating factor for doing so? Are you doing so because this is a style that your daughter or your son wants to wear? Are you doing it with hair health in mind? So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is we are focusing in on two types of hair loss, two types of alopecias, one being traction alopecia, the other one being CCCA. We use that acronym because it is a mouthful: central centrifugal cicatricial alopecia.
Who child?
Um, Now, these alopecias predominantly affect us, right? And much to Erin's point, there's evidence that suggests that some symptoms of this hair loss kind of begins in childhood. So we want to assess the general, Black population. Do you know that these alopecias exist? And if so, do you take the knowledge that potentially how we do our hair may contribute to these, diseases presenting themselves? Things
Well, wait,
like
wait.
that.
Can we pause there right a second? Because the way you phrased that, I think, whew, that was a powerful statement. Does the way can you say the statement one more time? Does the way that we do our are you aware that the way that we do our hair might contribute to this? Can you
Correct.
that I feel like that's a tough question because that feels like if I am not one, if I'm not aware of it, I'm ashamed and I'm embarrassed, right? So y'all can fill out the survey in the privacy of your own phone on your own home, child. You ain't got to tell nobody what you said. But there's also, I think, an emotional disconnect there as well because we tend to pride ourselves on we know what's best for our hair. And
Correct.
so I think if I'm hearing you correctly, this study is one seeking to establish one, what do we know about our
Mhm.
hair collectively? And two, is that collectively held wisdom actually to our benefit or is it more to our detriment? Am I understanding you correctly?
Correct. Beautifully
Okay.
said. We also have a child aspect to the study, where we're assessing, have kids experienced hair loss? Have you had the red bumps on the perimeter of your head? Um, their understanding of hair health as well, because I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about hair health. I didn't
Mhm.
care about hair health, to be honest. I wanted my edges to be laid and to look good for class or to school or prom or wherever I was going. So that's a primary focus of what we're trying to capture. What we're utilizing it for is a lot of data exists on these alopecias in terms of the pathogenesis of them, right? What the
What does
spots look like.
pathogenesis mean?
Pathogenesis just means how a disease presents, how it becomes, how would I explain it? How it becomes what it is, if it makes sense, right? So signs, symptoms, there'll be things like histological slides. It's just like slides from like people's scalp to see what it actually looks like under a microscope. And that's great, but like the average person, before I came to med school, I didn't know what any of those words meant either,
Mm,
right? So we're really passionate about having conversations like this. We want data that feels like you're talking to us, right? We're even trying to capture terms that we use in conversation. Like we're using the word edges in this
right,
project,
right.
kitchen, things like that. We want people to feel also more comfortable with like you said, admitting that they didn't know. I didn't know about these conditions until I started to lose my hair. And I finally went to the doctor and someone was like, hey, it's called this, right?
Hmm.
Just creating that safe space is still, excuse me, those safe spaces for continued dialogues like this one.
Wow. And so, Dr. Johnson, I'd like to turn to you now. As somebody who's a part of the medical profession, how would data like this empower you? You're a pediatrician, you're doing work of making sure that our community has the access to the healthcare that they need. How does information like the information you all are gathering in this study, how does it help you to better doctor the patients that are in your care?
Thank you for that question. So 50% of what I do is not just like treat you or see patients and give you shots and things like that. The other part is the educational aspect of it, which is why I'm an associate professor. I'm training those next generation of doctors to be better at treating their patients, as well as when I'm seeing my patients, I'm helping them and educating them on better ways that they can take care of themselves, better ways they can take care of their children. But I have to do that from an evidence-based medicine standpoint because that's the best standpoint to come from, where you have the science and you have the data, and then you blend in the cultural aspect of it, and you're better able to educate your patients and help them to better understand there are ways that we do things, but then there are ways that we should do things. When it comes to taking care of our children, there are ways that we were brought up to do, and then there are ways that are scientifically backed that have the best results. And as a parent myself, and as a pediatrician who takes care of lots of kids, I know that parents, we just want to do what's best for our children.
Right.
Sometimes though, not understanding or not having that data that says this way is right or that way is right. It's an art and a science, but when the science starts to talk and when the numbers start to talk, we have to listen.